We are live. I'm going to get closer to
Hello.
Kristin. I'm so excited to be here with Kristin today. Kristin Hackman, who will soon be releasing Just Breathe Mama. And we were having such juicy conversation. We got to set up my live video, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and it just reminded me of the process, the process, the process. So this whole idea that all of life is about our creations. All of life is about that process that we're in. And once that process is complete, and there's a lot of levels, and I want to go back and circle back to that level of when that birth is about to happen. And then once that birth does happen, I mean, that's just the beginning. That's just the beginning, and it's all going to start over again in some other way. One of the things that yeah, thank you for acknowledging our beautiful, this was a big thing.
She fashioned me.
So one of the very first time that I met Kristin, I think it was like the most powerful message that I probably could have just said to you every single time you came.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember, put it in your own words, do you remember what the memo was?
Yeah, I feel like I stumbled here, desperate. And my thing has always been controlling the outcome. And so I had really gotten to a place where it was controlling food, which then controls, it keeps you from joy, it keeps you from playing, it keeps you from things. So I came in here thinking, okay, I'm ready. She's going to tell me to restrict. She's going to tell me kind of getting what my next death sentence was, because I had made this path of finding healers, and it was always like, well, just do this and you'll get this outcome. And it was that first meeting, she said, you need to go put flowers in your hair and go have a cupcake and sit in the park.
Get back to your little girl roots.
Yeah.
That part of you that was just knew how to go with the flow, knew how to tap into the joy of life no matter what was going on around you.
Yeah.
Right?
Still working on that. But I have the flowers.
That's right. Yes, and it's always a journey, right? And a remembering. And I think that's part of why it came back to me today. And then as I was making our flower crowns with the flowers from my yard, it was like, oh wow, I never do this. Why don't I ever do this? This is actually exquisite. And another reason I was doing this, I've been really diving into Hawaiian music, and there's a Hawaiian mantra. I'm going to say it wrong. It's like, open, no.
That was a good attempt.
But it means, I love you, I'm sorry. I love you, forgive me. Forgive me, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. Something along those lines. And I'll post the one version of this song, this mantra being sung that I love. This Hawaiian woman sings it in English and in Hawaiian, and she's got this gorgeous flower crown. So that's another reason, flower crowns. I'm like, well, she looks so beautiful. Why don't I wear flower crowns and sing mantras during the day?
You can.
So there's so many different ways that can, ground ourselves when we open ourselves up to the kind of, really my little girl self.
Yeah.
Would remember that, oh yeah, of course you know how to do that. I remember doing that when I was a kid as well. So thinking of this idea, one of the things that came to me before our session when I was practicing, I had a remembrance. I have 4 kids as well. Kristin has 4, but she had them way closer together because she popped out triplets.
Yes.
And another little lady 2 years after her. So my first 2 kiddos, I was in a more traditional life and setting and had, in a very traditional way with epidural and everything. But by the time I got pregnant with my Sophia Marie, this was 2000, she was born in 2011. So in 2010, I was well into my Qigong world and opening up into this other way of seeing and connecting to energy. And for the first time, I'm like, I want to try this naturally. I want to try this a different way. And at the exact same time, there are no accidents, there was a movie that was produced in 2009. I don't know if you ever saw this movie. It's called Orgasmic Birth.
No.
So it's really interesting, the alignment of that remembrance, because I totally forgot. I had 2 really dear friends who were like, let's get together and watch this movie and kind of have a conversation about, the experience. And really the message in the film is when we are experiencing intense sensation, it's a spectrum, right? And how we choose to interpret and embody that sensation really depends on what we believe So if we're experiencing intense pain or we're experiencing intense pleasure, it all is part of the same intense frequency. So if we have this view of the pain we're experiencing as being wrong or bad or you want it to go away, versus you have this experience of the pain that you're experiencing of being like, okay, with a child, you can see the direct thing. Like, I am going to bring this baby into the world, and this has a higher purpose. But it really can translate. Like, if we have that interpretation of the other birthing pains that we maybe experience in our, on our healing journey, as we're, opening up, and different physical things may come in. What if we shifted the way we viewed that and started to see, like, if this is here as part of my journey, if this is here to guide me, how might that shift the experience? I mean, maybe not fully to pleasure. I do think it's possible that we could still open up that big. Because there's another piece that I've been opening up to lately of this idea that, like, I signed a contract on a spiritual level when I came into the world that I really wanted to do things the hard way and really wanted to learn it the hard way and wanted to get really stuck and find my way back out. And it's what led me to where I'm at right now. But I'm having this awareness right now that, like, what if there is another way to do it?
Yeah.
What if we don't have to get ourselves in a hole and suffer to figure out the next step in life? What if we could open and open and open and open to this other way of being? And, remembering that movie and really seeing myself where I'm at right now, I'm in a period of rebirth. And I'm in, like, the birth canal. So it's kind of like I don't have a lot more to say about it, but I'd love to hear whatever bubbles up for you to share about any experiences, because you started talking about something.
I know.
I'm going to push you. I'm going to say, like, I want to talk about the book because it's a baby, and I want you to speak to some of the things you were talking about, the process that you're going through with the publishing of the book.
Well, it's interesting because every time you and I are together, I feel like we're like, it's just like sparks, igniting different thoughts, different stories. So as you were telling that story about the orgasmic birth, it takes me back to when I had the triplets. I was on bed rest for 8 weeks, and then it was like, boom, C-section, you have 3 kids. You have 3 babies, good luck. And with Josie, I just knew, first of all, I had trouble getting pregnant with the triplets, and I don't regret getting, modern day medicine help. It was what needed to happen. With Josie, she just came out of the sky. It was like we just got pregnant. And I knew when I was pregnant with her, it has to be these certain ways. And it was a flow. I needed to be, I need a doula. I needed to deliver with no drugs. I need all these things to happen. And it was the summit of my spiritual experience, giving birth to her. So it's interesting. I can't say it was orgasmic, but it was very almost animalistic, to where it was like I didn't have those layers of fear or there was nothing else. It was that, right? It was this birth, and I just remember being, and I'm not a focused person, like, me, I get anxiety, and it was just very straightforward. That birth was similar to if you say I climbed this mountain and I remember it as this spiritual experience.
You were fully present.
Fully present, because there was so much pain, but I don't remember it being pain. I would never use that word. So that was bubbling up for me. And I think it's hard to talk about the book as a book. Like, I can't sit here and be like someone on the Today Show that talks about their book, because the book is just really an invitation for people to bring out the same thing I did. Yeah. So the book really is just, here's some things that happened to me approaching motherhood. Once I was a mother, once I tried to be myself again after I was a mother, because I thought, you have kids and then you're a mom. Talking about beliefs and stories, that was my belief. And just this morning, I was putting the kids on the bus, and I watched them get on the bus, and I'm like, they're they're designed to leave us. And that's crazy.
Yeah.
Because whether you have a baby inside your body or you take on a child or a baby,
It's okay. It's okay.
I'm shedding. There is this birthing process of this new life, but as you and I were just discussing, the grieving process, no one tells you that you have to let go of who you were and find this new thing. And as you were talking about, coming back to your child self.
Mm-hmm.
So I have 10-year-olds that are almost 11 and an 8-year-old. But they still, if given the opportunity, will dig in the sand, or they're really curious, right?
Mm-hmm.
They haven't been robbed of that yet.
Mm-hmm.
And as adults, we aren't very curious anymore, because I think once we try to conform and perfect and grow and stay in the lines, you lose the risk, right? You lose, or you feel like it's more of a risk, and you lose the opportunity to be curious. So I think that's where, I just want to say this first, because I'm releasing a book, and I think I can say this for you, because you stand on this platform, we don't have it figured out.
No. Mm-mm.
We just either got like angry enough, bored enough, inspired enough, something happened to where you and I are saying, like, here's our story.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my biggest fear about releasing a book is that people will look to me and think I have it figured out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just an invitation.
Right.
Because every time you talk about it, it loses its power, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's age-old therapy. Like, when you talk about it, it loses its power over you.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So it reminds me when we were speaking about that, not last week, but the week before, I was speaking with Barbara, who's on the video with us today. So one of the things we were talking about, so her work is in trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we were speaking about when you're on the journey of healing from your trauma, whatever level of experience that was for you, there's a period that is so deep within.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a period where you start to open up more to the world. And then there's a period where you are drawn to share your experience with others. Now, that doesn't mean you figured it all out.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a place where you're supported. You're supported by people that are in the same place where you're at. You're drawn forward by those wise women and men that have gone before you. And then you're helping to support the ones that are coming up to meet you where you're at. And that's all part, whether it's a book that goes out there, or it's a Facebook Live, or it's even just having a conversation with someone who you just happenstance to meet,
Mm-hmm.
That all has a purpose, all has a very high purpose, and not holding ourselves back because
Mm-hmm.
we feel like we have to have it like perfected before we put that.
Well, and it's funny, trauma's been a big word for me lately, because I've had people give me the permission to say it was traumatic to have 3 babies at once,
Mm-hmm.
but it's probably traumatic to have one at once. Like, even though it's good, trauma is a big word to help you understand why it's not easy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I know motherhood is beautiful and all these things, but it's traumatic. Even like Friday, Harper, one of my daughters, fell on a rock, and like her shin will never be the same, right? And I literally was thinking, like, I watched you come out and you were perfect, and now your leg has a chunk removed forever, 13 stitches. And I think honoring little traumas are really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Because had I been like, she's fine, it wasn't a brain injury, she's fine, I sat in that ER with her till 1 a.m, and I was like, this is traumatic, Harper. Let's process this. Like, you're gonna have a different leg. And that's tiny, but it was just like, I'm really trying to celebrate traumas, which sounds weird.
No, I think that, again, I'm goosebumpy, because it goes to one of the highlights of what you were saying before we got on the call, of the process of opening up to releasing this book. You need to go through all the stages of grief.
And it's traumatic releasing a book.
Right.
Like, I wish God gave me like everything but this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wish I could draw. I wish I could sing. I wish it was something else, because it is horrible, but it will be great.
But to go back to that experience, and to go back to Harper, the most important thing is to have that conscious recognition that all those emotions, all those feels have to be fully felt.
Mm-hmm.
From a place, like, it doesn't have to be from that place on the spectrum that we were talking about of like pain and like, this shouldn't be here. And I'm going to tell myself this story that this, especially if it's about the book, that it should be all happy, joy, and yay. No, you feel what you feel when you feel it, and allowing yourself to really be with that and honor that, and for you to embody that and to practice that with your daughter. I mean, what a gift, because again, we're reawakening to that.
Yeah.
if you teach her that now, then she'll know, like, because we all were, you push it down, and you keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And we both know how unhealthy that is and how it's just going to show up in some
and
way.
it's everything.
Again.
I mean, it's like my son started football. I mean, and he got hit bad the first day. And I'm like, let's talk about how that felt to get hit by another human. And I was like, do you feel like you're getting aggression out? Does it feel this way? And it's, again, I don't have it figured out, but it's like it's just trying to just give light to all these things. That I wish someone would have just been like, how did it feel when you felt really bad running the mile at school because you hated running when you were 8? I just was like, oh shit. I mean, I'm 40. I'm still thinking about how horrible it was that I hated running, and we're going to time you, go run the laps. And those things are, I think truly it's cheesy, but like Mother Teresa that said, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. Like being a good mom is just noticing, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And then just being like, I screwed up today. I just told Melissa that this week I literally went and bought a can of paint and opened a Mike's Hard Lemonade and painted a room a new color. And I was like, this feels like I'm being really rebellious. And it was like a safe rebellion, right? Like I didn't have to drive kids anywhere that night. It was a room that nobody really goes in. Who cares if I dripped paint? Who cares? I really needed that because that's not that's not what I let. It's not what I let
Yeah.
I'm usually in the lines.
Yeah.
So to do that felt really
freeing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to move out of that trauma. You can't live in that all the time.
Yeah. So really giving yourself, that's something that keeps coming up, the freedom to tap into whatever it is that comes up.
Yeah.
And just honoring
Silly
that.
stuff. Yeah.
Because it's going to help you with all those intense emotions that are rising up. And there's no rules, whether it's to make flower crowns and run around your yard, which has been the way that I've been staying grounded during my 3-day online retreat. There, I said it. I was like, no one else is here.
It's a very healthy way. It's healthy.
It is. Yeah. I mean, the other things that had come up this past week is just like the more remembrances. Like my daughter is an exquisite writer and has been since she could put pen to paper. And she gave me a journal for my birthday, this beautiful journal, Leo journal. And she pasted one of her gorgeous poems on the inside and the rest of it's blank. So my first thought was like, oh, she needs to fill the whole rest of this book with her poetry. And then it was like, no, you do, Melissa. And then I was like, oh God, I used to write. I used to like just spontaneously write, and I stopped.
You had
at her age. And it was the same kind of thing. I had a trauma where I shared it with my mom, and she was just kind of like, what's this? It doesn't make any sense. And I just like literally threw all of my poetry. I almost want to cry. So I haven't gotten over it either. I threw all my poetry away. I was like, okay, then I'm just not going to do it anymore. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So it's healing to have that remembrance. It's healing to do it, and also just to honor it. Like I don't need anyone to read it. It's for me. It's for me to just allow me to tap into another way that supports my healing process and moving emotions. And
well, and if you know Julia Cameron, she does the artist way. And she does a 12-step process. And one of them is sitting down and writing out your creative bullies in your life. Who made you believe that you couldn't write? Or maybe it was an art teacher that made you feel like you weren't creative, or your sister, or whatever. Like really looking at those and saying like, who stopped that at this point in my life? And saying like, no, that doesn't matter. Right.
So knowing that, no matter what somebody might have said, it goes back to that choice point.
Yeah.
We chose to believe it. We chose to shut it down. So if we made that choice, we can make a different choice.
Yes. And I have to say this before I forget. As you're talking about your daughter, and you said at her age, so there's a lot of power I'm learning as I'm going through some processing as this book comes out, that the age that your children are will bring up that age for you. Yep. No doubt. People don't realize that. So I used to say at the bus stop for my girls when they're younger, I'm like, I'm starting my period in 2 days. Just notice they're going to be mad today, like freaking out. And so, but then I started to notice like there was this mirror going back and forth. So right now, my hardest ages were between 8 and 11. Well, I have an 8-year-old and I have the triplets turn 11 in December. It's a really hard time. And I'm going to have to be very I'm fragile because that age was fragile for me.
Yeah.
But then also realizing it's not fragile for them.
Amen.
Gracie came home from school and was like, well, the cool girl, because they're at a new school, they're at the intermediate. The cool girl watched me eat nachos. Okay, I have food issues and I hated 5th grade. So I was immediately like,
you got triggered.
Tell me what it thinks, but you're cool, right? Like, she was like, I'm fine. What are you doing? She freaked out at me and I had to be like, oh, she's fine. Like, I wasn't fine at that age.
Yeah.
But here's another opportunity to process how I felt. And it's been this amazing, it's not fun, but to really notice it is huge. Because guess what? I still have 16 and 17. And like to know ahead of time that this dance is going to happen with my girls. Sons are a little different for me. I just feel like I get to like love on him and just celebrate like the masculine that I didn't know that was okay to be part of it, those ages. So for me, it's been daughters because I have 3 of them, and you know, it's a big part of mothering. Noticing
it's
that
huge, and I love that you shared that. I might have shared it in a Facebook Live that some of you may know. My son, in particular, all of my children in different ways, I've had that experience, and we've gone through some cyclic phases with my boy that were so intense. I'm sure we talked about it. Like, and the things that, it was exactly what you were saying. There were things that he came to me with where I'm like, oh my God. And it was like all of my amped up, we're going to tap into this. We're going to move this, we're going to, like it's not okay to share those things. It's not okay to feel what he was feeling. I wasn't telling him it wasn't okay. I was trying to fix it.
I feel like you turn into like Pac-Man when you just eat it.
Exactly.
Like, it's gone.
Now it's gone. Like I don't, because I didn't want to sit with it.
I know.
I didn't want it. But yeah, that he started to have digestive issues. It went into pneumonia. So this is when he was turning 12.
Yes, I remember.
And that was the hardest point in my own life. And it was the exact same kind of thing. The things that he was saying about feeling bullied and hurt, hurtful things towards himself. I'm like, oh my God, he's going to end up like me. And when it went to pneumonia, I actually had a call with my teacher, Grandmaster Lou. And I mean, I could figure this out on my own, but he said, he just needs you to hear him. He needs to be heard. I'm like, oh my God, he just needs to be heard. And I realized exactly what you said, that like, okay, this is mine. There's a piece of it that is his. He just needs to be heard. And I need to deal with everything that he's helped me to bring up. And there was a lot. It was like, wow. I didn't know I was still running all of that. Okay. And you're right. It was really uncomfortable, but to have that awareness and own it. And then like we've been saying this whole time, to go through all the phases of processing the emotion. And so liberating.
The way out of that, because a lot of times we talk about these big concepts, right? And I think for someone that's listening might be like, how do you do that? I really think for kids, it's just asking them. Like, I think of Quinn, my son. He did adventure therapy, and they asked during it, what do you crave? Or I don't think crave was the word, but like, what do you need? And he said freedom. And so that is like changed the trajectory of how I parent him, because he can't be caged. Right. He can't be the kid that has like 1 hour on his iPad. He needs to self-regulate it, or else he'll be like, I need 7 hours because you gave me 1. And so I'm not there yet, but I'm learning like the girls may need boundaries and he needs freedom. And so I just had to ask. Someone had to ask, like, what do you need? And even if they're nonverbal, they can sort of tell you if you just observe. Yeah.
This was so awesome.
Yeah, this was fun.
Any final passing thoughts or comments or anything that's come up for you?
Gosh, I feel like I got them all out.
You got them all out. Yeah, this was incredible. You can take a quick peek. Give yourself the freedom. Give yourself, lots of beautiful comments. Yay!
I will say I think that my book is called Just Breathe, Mama. And I 20 times a day say that to myself. I don't usually say just breathe, mama, but I literally sometimes will just like, it is that is my only responsibility right now. Yeah. That I can handle. Yeah.
It's a choice. You can choose to hold your breath, or you can choose to relax into it. Every moment we have a choice, and that's one that's very simple. We can become conscious of that. You're alive, you can breathe. And that goes to, from that Chinese medicine perspective, the lung and everything it does, because the lung is about letting go and release. And the lung is about honoring ourselves too, because it's the metal element. So giving yourself that full open-chested, like,
yes, open.
Yeah, like, I'm alive.
Well, I was talking with Laura Weaver quickly yesterday, and I know she did last week.
Yes.
She was your guest. We were like, we need like smoke breaks without the cigarettes.
Yep.
Because she was saying like, get out. She's like, I just want to have a smoke break, but like, I don't want to smoke. But we're like, oh wait, why does it feel good? People go out and they breathe.
Right.
You're outside.
Right.
And you're honoring that I'm going to give myself 4 minutes.
Exactly.
So we're like, how do we come up with this like modern day mom non-smoke break?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's all about going back to the breath and taking the time.
I actually am really excited that you said that, because I think you and Laura are going to come up with some clever way of
Yeah, we want to be like wife beaters. We've already kind of like have this like in our mind. We were like, this is what it's going to look like. But so just
4 minutes, right? It really that's it. Yeah. It doesn't even have to
time
be
a
20
cigarette
minutes, an
takes.
hour. Yeah, the time a cigarette takes. You could. Here are the health benefits.
Right. Yeah.
All right. This was awesome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And have a wonderful day, everybody. Yay. That was awesome.